Well, what I'm doing in South Central, of course, is I'm trying to bring programs into the inner city, and I'm not an organization in myself. I'm not per se a nonprofit organization or anything, but I just do it singly as working as a contractor or consultant mostly in South Central, and I offer courses and classes. I go and speak to groups in South Central with schools, mainly public schools right now, but sometimes private schools as well.
On what subject?
And I'm teaching self-defense. I call it civil self-defense, and it sort of brings to a higher level the idea of self-defense as a duty and as a right, and teaching young people especially how to exercise their natural right of self-defense against bullying. And bullying is the key problem in many schools that they're having at this point. And it kind of leads, one thing leads to another. And I think that the basis of that course is that kids need to be taught civility, they need to be taught discipline, self-control, how to govern their emotions and how to govern their passions. And at the same time, I'm giving them a skill that they could learn how to resist aggression against bullying and so forth. And so I think that's a very important task.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Would you consider yourself politically left or right?
I'm right. Some people would say extreme right, but to me, I'm just right, conservative.
And how did you manifest those things in your work, working in South Central, working in security?
Yes. Well, what I do is, since mainly many of the people or schools that I work with are pretty liberal, and yet they accept my program because I found a neutral way to do it. And the way I do it in teaching to give an ethical sort of meaning to what I'm doing is I use the principles of the Declaration of Independence, particularly, and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I use those documents very effectively in teaching the young people how to gain a sense of understanding our heritage as a nation, as Americans. And at the same time, they also learn how to defend themselves in the proper way and resist bullying. They use the Declaration as a guard against bullying. And that's why I sort of, phrase it, or the narrative. And from that point, it seems that everybody, even the liberals, will be open to the idea of how to do it.
What happened on Twitter with you recently?
Oh, well, with Twitter, what happened was I was engaging a lot of people on Twitter. I did a lot of tweeting.
With regard to which topic?
Well, different topics, various. In other words, when a feed would come through, as they do on Twitter, anybody who is on Twitter, you see a feed, or you see someone make a statement or make a, post something, and then I would reply to the post. I mean, it's out there, so I just simply ask a question. And that's my technique. Usually I would ask a question, and the person would either answer the question or they would get pretty angry based on my question. Many, if they were liberals, they would get pretty angry based on my question, and the question was purposely spoken to sort of expose their flaws and the flaw in their reasoning. But when they make a statement, a political statement, I would just simply question it, and as I questioned it, they'd come back and either reply, and we just go back and forth and back and forth. And constantly I'm asking questions. I rarely make statements or tell them what I believe, or they don't even know basically what I believe, but I just keep asking them questions based on their view. And then I guess at some point they get a little fed up with me and they say, oh, well, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Get away. You bother me. That sort of thing.
What kind of pressure is there within the black community today to fall in step? Because there seems to be, with the George Zimmerman trial, there seems to be echoes of the OJ trial where America in general began to question black Americans' primary loyalty or allegiance. Was it to law and truth and honesty, or was it to race?
The allegiance in the black community for years has been let me just say this. First of all, I think that we are impressed with the idea that it is the majority of blacks, because you see Al Sharptons and Jesse Jackson, NAACP. Those people get all of the media, the press, the mainstream media, and the media will not come to a conservative black, even within the community. There are conservative blacks, and I have a hunch that there are more conservative blacks than there are liberal blacks. However, most conservative blacks are, just like everyone else, intimidated and will not speak up. And so, for some reason, it seems like a lot of Americans are just intimidated by truth, or not by truth, but by the falsehoods, because they think that they're going to suffer some consequence of either losing their job or getting ostracized and being called Uncle Tom, that sort of thing. So it's not the majority of blacks, I don't think. But I think that that this whole thing, stigma here in the black community, is just, it can easily be overcome if we will have the courage to do it.
Where's that leadership?
There is no leadership, but you see, here's the thing I think about leadership, just that point of view, is that leaders, we don't need leaders. What we need are people, individuals, who will take the initiative and begin to stand up for truth. You see, there needs to be, we don't need one leader just to speak truth. We don't need a Dr. King today. I mean, as Dr. King led the civil rights movement, it was great. But that's not what we need today. We need individuals to stand up and just be strong and stand for the truth. And that's what in the black community is no different from any other community. You see, whether it's the black community, the Jewish community, the Latino community, we don't need one leader to lead us into this this victory. We could do this on our own if we just stand up. And that's what I do.
So where does the press get their narrative on what's happening in the black community, or how black America is reacting to the Trayvon Martin verdict?
Yeah, their narrative comes directly from Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, NAACP, as I said before, also Eric Holder, Obama, and that sort of thing. It's sort of indirect with Obama, because Obama likes to, as usual, stay hidden, but I think he pulls the strings in many ways. And of course, Eric Holder is taking orders from him. He's even said it before. But Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, they're very influential as well.
What agenda do you feel Obama has in pushing cases like this to, and also Department of Justice following up? Do you feel Obama has a divisive agenda?
Yes, I do. Ever since '08. I knew this before he was even elected in 2008. I never fell for it for a moment the first time, because when I heard him, I knew the way he talked. I'm familiar with socialism and Marxism and those sort of things, but America has not, for some reason, we are uneducated. Many Americans are uneducated to that idea or ideology, so that they don't really recognize it when they see it. And instead, they go for the gifts, for the benefits that are promised them, and yet never come.
Well, I mean, electronic benefits, food stamps, welfare checks come.
Yeah, they do. But I mean, when I say never come, I'm talking about in terms of the public policies that promise to make the community better. See, none of these things are making the community better, and they don't put people in better positions, blacks. We see that today. I mean, many jobs are, blacks are without jobs, and it's a decrease in our neighborhoods. The community doesn't look, the face of the community is not that, not improved at all. Not over the years. I've been there all my life, and I haven't seen much improvement at all. In fact, we have digressed. You see.
But is Obama responsible for everything that happens in Democratic Party elected government officials?
Oh, no, but the idea is already there, implanted in the minds and hearts of the Democrats that own every vestige. I mean, if you think of the Democrats running the show from the White House to the downtown Los Angeles City Hall, Okay,
Hall.
so from City Hall of Los Angeles to city halls all across the country.
Board of Education.
Yes, Board of Education. So that means that education, let's see, even in much of, it seems that healthcare they want to take over, and obviously with the Obamacare, and law enforcement, they control that in a sense. So it's pretty much all government run. Everything is just influenced by government to the point that we are almost oblivious to the damage that it's doing, because we're cradled into this idea that government is our father or God or whatever.
In what ways do you challenge the liberal black establishment?
Obviously, I'm such a little guy, but I'm only one man, but I try to influence it with ideas, and in the best way I can. And my sphere of influence is education, because I work, again, with schools and with organizations, and I think that the most indirect way, it's kind of like an old saying of my instructor I heard in martial arts. You think, never take a wave head on. You don't take a wave head on. You have to learn to go indirectly and around it. Like if you're swept out into the ocean, you swim parallel to the shore in order to get out of that, out of that pool.
Undertow, yeah.
And so you have to go around it. So basically that's the method I use. Instead of going facing a wave head on or facing force head on, I'm redirecting using more subtle approach, questions. It's kind of like the old Columbo tactic. That's what we call it. Columbo tactic of using questions to be able to bait them into exposing themselves and the flaws in their arguments.
What about the tactic of responding to criticisms through allegations of racism? How do you feel about that and the way that it's being used?
You mean responding in the sense that coming from...
I mean, if anyone who isn't black criticizes Obama or...
Yeah. Well, the best way I get around it, I would say, first of all, if anyone who isn't black, they say, is a racist, then I ask them, well, what about the black who agrees with them? The one who is not a black. And then they'll say, well, you're Oreos, you're a sellout. And I say, well, my next question, again, in what way am I a sellout? That's when you usually, by that time, they're ready to change the subject or to move away from the conversation. So it kind of catches them, just like the gentleman, the speaker, Mr. O'Keefe, was talking about. You're basically setting them up to, expose their hypocrisy. And so you have to ask the right questions. I think that questions is the best way to really sort of uncover these falsehoods.
But when you ask questions through your Twitter dialogue, what happened to your Twitter account?
Oh, boy. Well, I asked, again, I would engage I've engaged atheists, I've engaged the homosexual lobbies and the gays. I've engaged people with different ideas and all kinds of levels and different subjects, okay? Because one thing, and let me just say this, in the conservative movement, I don't hear a lot of engaging of the social issues. As you know, many of us steer away from the social. We want to talk about fiscal matters. I'm fiscally conservative or what have you. But I'm both fiscally and socially conservative. So what I do is, and on the social networks, you do get a chance to hear about social issues. They will talk about it there. Now, I just come out and ask them, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? And how do you come to this conclusion? Those are the kinds of questions I'd ask. And so I think that what I did with on Twitter was ask certain questions about the Zimmerman case. And for example, they would say, oh, Zimmerman is, this was wrong, it was unjust. And I said, well, what was unjust about it? That's what I asked them. Well, they'd say things, Zimmerman tried to hunt this man down, Martin. He hunted him down, he's just a kid. I said, well, what pictures have you seen of his actual, age before he was killed?
So what happened with your Twitter account?
Well, the Twitter account, what happened was they suspended it after I tweeted just after the verdict was read on Saturday night. I tweeted, the exact words I can't remember, but I had tweeted some words. This is a victory for the American people because of the right to self-defense. And even though they didn't use stand your ground law as their argument, I used it as my argument. I said, now, stand your ground law is very important for blacks as well as whites. And so they were very angry with that.
But how did they get Twitter to shut down your long-held personal Twitter account?
Well, I think it was a result of something that happened even before that when I was engaging a few atheists. You know, they were coming on, they were talking about God and his existence. And what I did was, I remember someone said, you know, we ought to block him. I know they would tweet back. I saw the tweet. You ought to block this guy. Block him. Let's block him and so forth. And, you know, shortly after that, Twitter blocked me, or Twitter suspended me. And then that was the first time, and I said, well...
Did they give you a hearing? Did they give
No.
you a chance to respond?
No response, no hearing. I couldn't, I was looking for some type of 800 number to call them, you know, but I went on Twitter, and all they would give you is you have to go online, and to do that, you have to pay for it. And I said, well, I'm not going to go through that. You know, I don't see why I should have to pay for it to find out why you suspended me. You know, because they want you to give them $50 or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what it said on Twitter. They wanted you, because people were online, and they said they were waiting to get in, you know, your questions. You would send in your
Did
questions.
the people who charged that your account should be suspended have to pay a nickel?
I don't know. I know I didn't pay to get on it. I mean, it's a free social network.
But you had to pay to get your account restored.
Yes,
And
that's-
did you? What'd you do?
I didn't pay. I didn't pay at that time. What happened was I just left it alone, and I think they reinstated me one more time because I answered. I did check off a box that said, you know, you agree to adhere to our rules. And actually, I even went to the rules, and it didn't say anything in specific about what you can tweet and not tweet in terms of you know, language used.
So last Saturday night, after the Zimmerman jury acquitted George Zimmerman, you got in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Well, I got in a conversation, and I basically posted that I thought that Zimmerman was innocent based on based on self-defense law, and that's what I was mostly arguing for. And I didn't want to get into details of all of this stuff and their presuppositions about, well, Zimmerman should have stayed in the car, Zimmerman shouldn't have done this or should have done it. So I didn't get into that, you know.
But how did you find out that your account was in trouble?
Well, they said it came up on my screen. On the screen, I guess they notified me and said, your account has been suspended.
On what basis?
They never said any basis. There was no basis for it. They never stated it.
Did you have a hunch who complained to get you in this trouble?
Yeah, I have a hunch it was, I had the group previously that I had dealt with, and they all must have either conspired or just maybe Twitter, because they say they monitor everything. So they monitored everything that I was tweeting. But I never tweeted anything that's, any type of slanderous or foul language. Yet that's the kind of language that goes on all the time on the other side.
So are you appealing the judgment?
I haven't figured out yet, but I am working on it. There were some people I met tonight who said that they would try to help me. They'll help me get back on. They know how. They have people that they know are very, influential in that area. I don't know any other way to appeal, though, because, I haven't been able to go on Twitter. I've even tried to, to go on Twitter.com, and for some reason I can't seem to get through. It's almost as if they know it's me. I don't know how that's possible, but I've been using my phone to do it, my smartphone, so maybe I'll try it on computer, see if I can get through.
Is there a group or a website that people wanted to support you in your work they could reach you through?
Oh, I don't have a website or anything like that. I'm just basically...
Facebook page?
No, no Facebook. I even got off of that too a little while back. I'm just sort of winging it. That's it.
When you say got off, did you get off of your own volition?
On Facebook, yeah, because Facebook did not really serve my needs that much. But I was told, even tonight, that Facebook does the same thing. They'll take down certain pictures. They'll take down some people posts that people make. So I'm not the only one. I've heard other people say that they've been suspended as well for conservatives.
During the week, professionally, you work with LA Unified?
Yes, I work with LA Unified when school's back in the season, and I also work with nonprofit organizations, different types, and I work with even religious schools. But mainly, again, any organization or group that has kids, young people, at-risk youth, I work mostly with them in the inner city area.
How long have you been doing it?
Oh, since 1991.
And what trends are you seeing in these schools in the inner city?
Well, the trends are moving further away from our founding principles, and that's what concerned me most. I just use martial arts as a tool to get, the attention of the youth, and it does get their attention because it's something that they enjoy doing. They also gain a skill, a good habit and discipline, physically speaking, as good health, good exercise, fitness. But the main thing that I see is the lack of civility in our society, just like with the mobs of black kids going around attacking people and stealing. Looting, yeah. They've been doing that. You must have heard of it, like in Hollywood.
Mugging people on the street?
Exactly, mugging people at the bus stop. You're sitting at a bus stop, people waiting at the bus. And this is black on black crime as well as black on anybody else. So it's not based on race. I mean, they have no prejudice when it comes to that, when it comes to, aggressing.
But those are small groups. I guess that's not representative. But in schools, what are you seeing on a general basis?
Well, I see a lot of basically undisciplined kids, and that on the campus is something that could be challenging, very challenging for most people. But I handle it very well. That's where I've developed and sort of developed my thick skin and developed my techniques that I use in terms of verbal skills.
Which grade of school?
I work with K through 12, all levels.
Middle school?
Mostly 7 through 12. I have my program, but I mentor and I've worked with all ages, basically.
And what do you attribute this lack of civility to?
Well, again, the lack of civility is from the lack of knowledge in terms of who they are, their human dignity, their self-respect, and who they are as Americans. I think of it like that. I teach them about being American. What does it mean to be an American? Because they don't know, and most of us don't know. Most adults don't know these days. We're so balkanized, in our cultures. We have every culture that we put first above the American way. And I like the old saying in the old Superman, the original Superman TV series, where he talked about truth, justice, and the American way. So I try to bring that concept back into the thinking of the kids.
But how would you characterize what is the American way to these kids who haven't been taught it? Don't they get taught it by their classroom teachers?
Not necessarily. I mean, they may be taught that America is an evil country in terms of its history, and I don't think so. Sure, we have our faults, and we've had many problems, but I always talk to them about, in terms of the Declaration principles. Like, for example, the whole idea of slavery, the whole idea of all of the injustices against blacks during the Civil Rights Movement, and all of the other injustices. I always top it out by saying this: how do we abolish those injustices? How do we abolish slavery? How did we bring all men equal in terms of voting skill, being able to vote? How do we get women to be able to vote? How did all this happen? And I asked them that question. They kind of looked, I said, well, think about the principles that the founders talked about. The Declaration of Independence, does it apply to all men equally, or not all men equally, or maybe just white men? They said, well, it's only just for white men. They wrote it for them. And I said, well, if that's the case, then how is it that we are now voting? How is it that we are now free today? And how is it those documents are still there and we are free? Most likely they would say, they don't know what to think about that. And I said, well, look at the principles that all men are created equal that Jefferson wrote. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Now, it's the principle. If you look at the principle, it applies. But if you look at the way people treated you, it doesn't apply. So which is it that we should look at? And then I ask them that in a question format, and then they say, well, let's look at the principle as it sits, as it reads. And so I've had kids come to me after my classes, and over time they would say, but this is what it says. And so this is what we should follow or do. And I said, exactly. You look at what it says. When someone tells you that they only meant white men, you say, but that's not what it says. It says all men. It doesn't say all white men. See?
Who's teaching this racial divisiveness in the community?
Oh, it's the teachers at large. The history teachers, social studies, social justice is what they call it. You know, this idea of social justice, I even ask teachers, what does that mean? You see, that's how I challenge the teachers. You know, I say, this social justice, what do you mean by that? And no teacher gives me the same answer. They're always different, you know.
But is that part of curriculum?
Well, it's not, yes, it is. I'll say it is. And maybe it's written part of the curriculum, but it could be unwritten in many cases, but spoken of. It's talked about, and that's the way it's taught. It may not always necessarily be written in the curriculum, but that's the way they speak when they talk.
Are you suggesting that black teachers interpret white and black class social studies?
Yeah, they sure do. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And
in a way that's not known to the principal?
Well, that I don't know. You know, the principal probably knows. I think the whole schools know, all of the schools know. And I think that's what they do purposely.
How about for Hispanic kids?
Same thing. I mean, I've had kids from other countries, you know, kids say, a boy walked up to me and said once as a high school senior, I think, and he says, you know, I don't feel comfortable saying the Pledge of Allegiance. One boy walked to me and said, and I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I just don't feel like I'm a part of this country. I said, well, where are you from? He said, El Salvador. And I said, well, you don't feel a part of the country, but aren't you living here? Are you benefiting from it? He said, yeah. So aren't you then a part of it? So, I mean, that's one way I got him to think. I said, what is it that you don't feel, you know, what is it that you don't feel a part of, you know, in specifics? And, you know, he basically says, like many of the rest of them, well, it's a racist country. I said, what's racist about it? See, I always do that. You got to directly, you know, you ask them questions. You probe and ask questions and let them speak and give you the answer about that. And see, I noticed that in our conversations, I never, well, they know where I stand, but most of the time I don't tell them where I stand on a certain issue. I don't say anything about, this is my opinion. I'm just asking them questions. And that's the same thing I did on Twitter, and I loved it. I was having a great time, you know, until they cut me off. But that's basically what I was doing. I was probing and asking questions, and people got upset because it was exposing them, you know, and so that's...
Saved by the bell.
Yeah, that's my ride. Yeah.
Thank you very much for speaking with us today. It's a pleasure. And if people want to follow up with you, is there any page or blog page or way that they can reach you? I mean, your friends, not your enemies?
No, I don't have any blog page or anything. Not at this time, not yet, but I'll work on it.